All right, I think we're live. Are we live? You guys here with me? Let's see. Looks like it. We're live, right? It's been a while. It's been busy. Very busy, in fact. But thank you guys for joining me. Amped as always. I figure we'll hang out. We'll chill a little bit. And then what we'll do is do a breakdown of course, this big story, the Russian peace plan, or sorry, excuse me, the joint U.S.-Russia peace plan. One that, of course, the Europeans and the Ukrainians were never consulted on. We're going to talk about if this is even serious, if this peace plan even involves Ukraine at all. And then we're going to talk about the real reason behind it. And namely, the Ruskies, I'm trying to think of how to put this nicely, the Russian tendency to rely on stall tactics. So, as we've discussed, guys, people are like, oh, Krasnov looking pretty real. Again, I've never argued that Trump does not have a loyalty to Russia. And I point out that if you believe that if Trump is in the Epstein files, and because he calls that a hoax. So it's fair to say other hoaxes, because he also called January 6th a hoax, but there was robust evidence that him and other Republicans conspired to overthrow the U.S. election. So if you believe that January 6th was a sincere attempt to install false electors and prevent the certification of free and fair election results, and if you believe that Trump is concealing the Epstein files to protect himself or others close to him, then by definition, Trump has called those two things hoaxes. So it's probably fair to say that the Russia hoax is probably equally credible. And again, this was shown in the Mueller report in 2016, in which there were numerous contacts between Trump and the Russian Federation. And on at least 10 occasions, the investigation was stonewalled. They said the Trump administration and Trump himself obstructed justice. Why would you need to obstruct justice to disprove a hoax, right? Clearly, right? It's easy. It's like saying, oh, why are you obstructing justice to disprove the moon landings? It's like, guys, it's pretty easy to just, here's a moon rock. Like, it's in a museum. You can go and see it. So again, we're going to let people sort of filter in and then we'll talk about stuff. But to kick it off, we got another campaign going, helping out a whole bunch of new units just for us here, helping UAO. And this is unique because, let me show you guys. It's unique because we are helping out a bunch of Ukraine's best units: 3rd Separate Assault, 54th Separate Reconnaissance, 7th Rapid Response Corps, Liut, 73rd Naval Special Operations Center. And right, we're helping them get the stuff they need today, but also we're helping out their R&D labs. That's right. All of these units have their own R&D operations where soldiers on the battlefield will say, listen, this is the tech that I need. This is where the tech isn't working for me. Help me out. And the units themselves have engineers and field personnel that build new advanced weapons and deploy them to the battlefield. We're helping them produce upgrades to 15 of their ground drones and antenna carrying drones, the details of which literally we can't even specify. So, and if you want to help out, the link's right there, pinned in the chat. And we've got patches, of course, 54th Separate Reconnaissance Battalion and the 7th Rapid Response Corps. Plus, if you can really chat it up, the units, one of the units contributing a signed flag. Or yeah, it'll be from a variety of different units. And it's tax deductible in the US and in Ukraine, or excuse me, US and in Europe. I assume it's also tax deductible in Ukraine, but Ukrainian civilians probably don't need to donate to this. So thanks to all you guys that have contributed to all the previous ones, right? We appreciate you. yeah, this plan, we're gonna talk about it. There's almost no way to take this plan even remotely seriously. It's just truly, I mean, one of the most absurd things I've ever seen. It's not even a plan. Like there's so many layers to it. It's both bad and dumb, right? It's like having RFK treat your cancer. Like the plan will be bad, but it also won't make sense within itself, right? Like it's one thing to have a theory that's wrong, to say I think, you know, to be like, okay, I think that uh, um, diseases are caused by a demonic curse. You're like, oh, okay. You go, all right. And then you go, okay, well, you're going to call a priest, right? They go, no. It's a demonic curse, but we're going to treat it by drinking a lot of water. You're like, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't even make any sense within itself. And that's sort of like what this plan is. Yeah. Yeah, Spartan, bad and dumb. Yeah, dude. This whole era is bad and dumb. The political chattermots are having a hell of a day. Yeah, I actually think that this whole scheme could also be literally just Epstein cope. Because look, it's so dumb and so bad, and the administration knows that like doing idiotic stuff. Yeah, doing idiotic stuff is just always gets the clicks. It always dominates the news cycle. And so they're like, well, let's dominate the news cycle by doing something crazy and performative. Because look, Trump has never stepped up to help Ukraine. They're probably not going to step up to hurt them. I hate to say it. You know, it's not clear that Trump has the authority to, these sanction packages, they're passed by Congress. So it's not clear that Trump could roll them back if he wanted to. Does that make sense? Again, I don't know the language specifically of these sanctions, but yeah, I know the recent ones are sanctions that Congress has given him like the lever over. Yeah, it'd be nice to see an American military effort that can actually win a war. That would be dope, dude. I would love to live in a country that won a war. I mean, it's been 35 years since we've achieved a battlefield victory. Yeah, we haven't even like supported had an ally that won a battle, like a war in a battlefield. Maybe kind of sort of the Syrian president, sort of, but it's not clear that he's not. Well, actually, no. The current Syrian president was a terrorist with a $10 million bounty on him, like literally until he became president. Yeah, trust Pete Hegseth. Listen, I don't trust Pete Hegseth to stay sober, okay? Okay, so by the way, guys, the story time more about disobeying superior officers. Well, yeah. I don't have that many stories because it didn't really come up that often. Most of the time, you could have a sane conversation with your officers, and that's kind of where that went. Wasn't Iraqi freedom a battlefield victory? It was 20 years. I guess we sort of have a stable Iraqi government that kind of works, but it's pretty deeply Iranian influenced. And no, I would argue no, because when the Iraq war ended, ISIS emerged and took over a huge portion of Iraq. So the Iraqi freedom didn't end with a decisive American victory. New Dawn, still no. Yeah, the Iraq war at best is like a neutral event. So Yeah. Okay. What do you guys want to do? You want to talk about it? I'd also say, if you guys have a question, you can always throw me a super chat. And also, you've seen we've upgraded the membership. Now, if you do a specialist tier or lieutenant tier membership or above, it'll give you a login to Combat Vet News, right? So it's either one. I think it's slightly cheaper on Combat Vet News, obviously, because that's a site that we own and control. So, yeah, I think that's the, you know, that's the thing. And I've heard YouTube now has gifted memberships. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so it's not even about the time, because today is the 21st, and that's a very special day, and we're gonna talk about exactly why. But when Clinton sank that low, ha 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 ha. All right, should we talk about it? Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, let me pull it up. It's been a while since I've done this on a live stream. The details of Trump's plan to end the war in Ukraine have emerged, and it's both incredibly dumb and also incredibly cruel. Just how did Steve Witkoff manage to write a plan that doesn't even make sense within itself? It's not even a good surrender plan. We're going to break it down point by point, show you guys exactly why this thing is loaded with internal contradictions and is almost comically poorly written. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Hit subscribe and let's crack into it. Okay, so here is a verbatim text of the plan by the Trump administration, negotiated by Steve Witkoff and Russian liaison to the Trump administration, Kirill Dmitriev. Now, I want to point out one thing is that Kirill Dmitriev is not a foreign policy official. He is officially the head of the Russian Sovereign Wealth Fund, and has been an informal liaison with the Trump administration for years. Now, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, because obviously a lot of governments like to have these kind of less formal ways of broaching topics that might be too sensitive to do publicly. But in terms of negotiating a peace agreement, you want to make sure that you have major players involved. So again, Steve Witkoff, Trump, Kirill Dmitriev, very not someone. This plan should not be. Those should not be the last stop of this plan. Right? It should be endorsed by a senior formal official with real foreign policy credentials. Someone like Sergei Lavrov should come out and say, yes, we support this. Obviously, Trump or Putin himself, Marco Rubio, someone else. There's reported that Jared Kushner is involved, which, by the way, Jared Kushner doesn't have a foreign policy role at all. He's officially not a member of the government. He's like you and I. Imagine if you and I got brought in to do this. It's the whole thing. It has all the markings of being something deeply unserious. But let's take a look at it inside. Okay, here's the proposal verbatim. Ukraine's sovereignty will be confirmed. Let's be generous and say that this is just a statement of intent, right? Right. But what does it mean to be sovereign? Look at sovereign citizens. They have one definition. Another country might have a different definition. And we're going to talk about whether or not Ukraine's sovereignty is actually confirmed within this document. Point 2. A comprehensive non-aggression agreement will be concluded between Russia, Ukraine, and Europe. All ambiguities of the last 30 years will be considered settled. Holy shit. This, guys, if you could do this, you would be considered the greatest diplomat of the 21st century. Okay? So this would be this would require a series of agreements between literally dozens of countries, probably significant legislative changes, and it would require a level of transparency, particularly from Russia, and a level of unity from Europe that has been unprecedented in decades. Okay, so all you have to do is, so far we have a topic so vague it can't be pinned down. It's like saying that this treaty is based on trust and love. It's like, guys, that means nothing. 2, we're going to, at a future date, achieve one of the greatest diplomatic concessions in modern history. Okay, now let's see number 3 it requires. It is expected that Russia will not invade neighboring countries and NATO will not expand further. Okay, so 1, it is expected is not a treaty term, okay? It's setting an expectation, and generally the way these things work is if-then statements. Now, it's implied that the treaty will remain in force as long as NATO doesn't expand and Russia doesn't invade neighboring countries. But here's the thing. You may note that Ukraine is not a NATO member. Ukraine was not moving towards being a NATO member in 2014, 2022. And so why is these conditions about NATO in here? But more importantly, guys, if Ukraine's not a NATO member, then how can Ukraine be a signator of this treaty? In order to achieve this, NATO itself has to change. By the way, it needs to alter its charter. The NATO charter says that any nation can apply for membership within NATO. Anyone. That includes nations who are currently in the Russian sphere of influence or nations who are currently afraid of Russian aggression. And again, if you say, well, wait, you don't have to worry about Russian aggression because Russia is expected to not invade neighboring countries. Well, that's not the same thing as a guarantee. NATO is a guarantee. So it's a pinky promise that Russia won't invade neighboring countries. Do you see how it's starting to build the internal contradictions? And again, Ukraine, you need sign-off from all NATO countries to achieve this, by the way. Then it says a dialogue. So another treaty within a treaty. A dialogue will be held between Russia and NATO, mediated by the United States. Between the United States, the primary NATO member. So a dialogue will be held between Russia and the United States, mediated by the United States, to resolve security issues and create conditions for de-escalation in order to ensure global security and increase opportunities for cooperation and future economic development. So NATO, not an economic alliance, but I understand the idea. But to say we're just going to talk about our issues, again, this is a treaty within a treaty. And if you can resolve the conflict between Russia and NATO with a dialogue, again, so you just have to become, again, another world-class diplomat of the century, right? This would be a diplomatic achievement of literally the century in Europe. So just become the greatest diplomat in history twice, and we're only on point 4. Ukraine will receive reliable security guarantees. Okay, again, so it sounds like a third treaty needs to be written in which Ukraine receives reliable security guarantees. Then it says the size of the Ukrainian armed forces will be limited to 600,000 personnel. This is a problem because this is a strange condition for Russia to impose because the Russian armed forces also do not have a cap on their personnel size. They can have they have a multi-million person strong army, including a massive reserve. Why is it important for Russia to cap the size of the Ukrainian armed forces? By the way, guys, the Ukrainian armed forces at no point, not even today, at their largest size in history, do they have the capacity to meaningfully invade Russian territory. The capacity does not exist. And so the idea that the only intention to limiting the Ukrainian armed forces size is to make them vulnerable to Russian invasion. That is it. The Ukrainian armed forces have only been used in defensive efforts following a Russian invasion. Ukraine has not independently invaded Russia or any of its neighbors since becoming an independent nation. It has not happened, right? It was a limited incursion, less than 50 miles at its apex, only 2 years after Russia invaded Ukrainian territory, or after the full-scale invasion. So the idea that this is important is a clear indicator of real Russian intentions, which is to ensure Ukraine lacks the ability to meaningfully resist. Now, Ukraine was going to alter its constitution. I mean, after these other 4 treaties, Ukraine rewriting its constitution is trivially easy. That it will never join NATO, and Ukraine will never, by the way, it says NATO will never expand further and also will never admit Ukraine. Who wrote this? NATO agrees not to station troops in Ukraine. Oh, interesting. So, wait. Ukraine will receive reliable security guarantees, but not so reliable as to have actual troops in Ukraine. Interesting. By the way, guys, fun fact, if you're a sovereign nation, who do you think decides what military partners come into your country? The United States, we invite our military partners to come train with us from all over the world. That's our right. That's because we're a sovereign nation. Does the Palestinian Authority have the right to invite nations into their governance system? Can they invite Egyptian military to come liaise with them? No, because they're not sovereign. So, Interesting. European fighter jets will be stationed in Poland. Yeah. Again, what's the alternative? A ban on the Polish Air Force? What is this? Then it says the U.S. guarantee. The U.S. will receive compensation for the guarantee. From who? What guarantee? If Ukraine invades Russia, it will lose the guarantee. Okay. If Russia invades Ukraine, in addition to a decisive coordinated military response, a military response, guys, all global sanctions will be reinstated. Okay, so the whole globe has to be rolled into this. And recognition of the new territory and all other benefits of this deal will be revoked. Okay, so the U.S. will totally have a coordinated military response if Russia invades Ukraine. A response, guys. Do you think the Trump administration, by the way, what do you think their response would be if Russia were to invade Ukraine? Just to guess. If Ukraine launches a missile at Moscow or St. Petersburg without cause, the security guarantee will be deemed invalid. Without cause. Okay. Interesting. Weird. Because this is also bizarre because it gives Ukraine carve-outs to launch missiles into Crimea. Very weird. It says Ukraine is eligible for EU membership and will receive short-term preferential access to the European market while the issue is being considered. Okay, so here we are. This is additional treaty number 5. A powerful global package of measures to rebuild Ukraine. Guys, this is also grammatically written like you're drunk. Whoever did this was drunk. Like, NATO agrees not to station troops in Ukraine, right? So that's a sentence. European fighter jets. But look, this is a sentence in the present tense. NATO agrees to not station troops in Ukraine. This is a sentence in the future tense. European fighter jets will be stationed. Okay. NATO agrees. Present tense. Future tense. The size of the Ukrainian armed forces will be limited to. It's just it's minor, but it reflects a real lack of thoughtful wording, right? Ukraine will receive reliable security guarantees. Again, all of these things appear to be events in the present, except for these ones in the future. But this one isn't a sentence at all. It just says the U.S. guarantee, right? And again, I'll give them a pass because of these weird bullet points. But like, then it says Ukraine is eligible. We're in the present tense. And then this one isn't a sentence at all. It just states a powerful global package of measures. What are you talking about? What is this in reference to? A powerful global package of measures to rebuild Ukraine? Like, where's the verb? There's no verb here. Who wrote this? Oh, a Ukraine Development Fund. You mean like the one the U.S. already extracted from Ukraine in exchange for aid, the aid that we've now stopped providing? But we'll totally invest in your data centers and artificial intelligence. What? U.S. is going to cooperate with Ukraine to jointly rebuild, modernize Ukraine's gas infrastructure. Joint efforts to rehabilitate. Oh, joint. So Russia won't have to pay for it, though. The United States is going to pay to rebuild Ukraine. Interesting. And then just the word infrastructure development. A powerful package of measures, including infrastructure development. Extraction of minerals and natural resources. Again, a deal that already exists. And then a mandate with a verb. The World Bank will develop a special financing package to accelerate these efforts. This is written by like a moron. This is guys, this is like a notes document that you would write prior to proposing a treaty. This is literally written as like a Google Doc. I guarantee it. This isn't even written in proper English. Russia will be reintegrated into the global economy. Okay. Lifting of sanctions will be discussed and agreed upon in stages and on a case-by-case basis. Interesting. United States will enter a long-term economic cooperation agreement for mutual development in the areas of energy, projects in the Arctic, mutually beneficial corporate opportunities. Russia will be invited to rejoin the G8. So Russia, it says, will be reintegrated into the global economy. Will lift sanctions eventually, but also the U.S. will do mutual economic cooperation. It's very weird. Frozen funds will be used as follows. The U.S. will receive 50% of profits, guys. Of course. This peace deal sucks. And also, the U.S. is going to extract all this money from Ukraine. Brilliant. And the Europeans will put in $100 billion of their own money. Oh, wow. When were we going to tell the Europeans about this? So now the Europeans have to sign off on this, by the way. By Europe, what do we mean? Do we mean the EU? Do we mean the largest contributors? Do we mean NATO? Unclear. Europe is a continent. Okay, the EU is an entity. NATO is an entity. This doesn't make any sense. I mean, Russia's a part of Europe. Fuck. Will Belarus do it? Russia will enshrine in law its policy of non-aggression towards Ukraine and Europe. Oh my God, dude. Holy shit. Russian law serves Putin. It's whatever he wants it to be, guys. Russia is not a country with the rule of law. A working group will be established. What? Okay, this is a real. This is as close to a real treaty. The United States and Russia will agree to extend the validity of treaties on the non-proliferation and control of nuclear weapons, including START 1. See, that's a real point. See, it's a specific treaty where both countries make a specific concrete agreement. Ukraine will be a non-nuclear state. Okay. Now, you might recall there's already a treaty in force that says that, but that treaty says that actually the U.S. already guarantees Ukrainian sovereignty in that treaty. Yikes. Awkward. I wouldn't even bring that up. Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. So now Russia has conquered the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Despite the fact that Zaporizhzhia is not one of the agreed upon territories to be switcherooed. So the Ukrainians are going to control Zaporizhzhia, but also they'll have to give their energy to Russia. By the way, guys, what's it called when a country is forced to turn over its resources to a larger, its larger dominant power? That's called colonialism. And boy, that sounds incompatible with Ukrainian sovereignty. Fascinating stuff, guys. So, both countries are going to implement educational programs in schools at promoting understanding and tolerance of different cultures and eliminating racism and prejudice. Protection of linguistic minorities. What will Russian education look like in about Ukraine? Well, so far, again, and what will happen if will Russia be adopting these rules on religious tolerance and linguistic minorities? No, of course not. Only Ukraine will. Despite the fact that this says something totally different. Guarantee the rights of Ukrainian and Russian media and education. Interesting. So Russian state media. Again, is it sovereign? Is RT allowed to broadcast on U.S. airwaves? No. Is Sputnik allowed to broadcast on U.S. airwaves? Also no, because they are state-backed propaganda. So again, forcing another country to receive your propaganda. By the way, will Ukrainian television channels be allowed in Russia? No, of course not. All Nazi ideology and activities must be rejected and prohibited. This is just stupid. This is just stupid. Both, I mean, Russia's not going to stop its Nazis. And again, a country with an elected Jewish leader probably doesn't have a systematic Nazi problem. Now, Kherson and Zaporizhia. Okay, this is also, there's no exchange of territories, by the way. Crimea, Luhansk, Donetsk recognized as Russian. Kherson and Zaporizhia, also, wherever Russia conquered, it gets to keep. Russia will relinquish a tiny number of territories in essentially a tiny portion of Kharkiv. Oh, and Ukrainian forces will also yield additional territory, Donetsk Oblast. It will be a neutral demilitarized zone. Obviously, there is no condition. Who gets to decide if it's been violated, right? Internationally recognized territory belong to the Russian Federation. Is it a demilitarized zone or does it belong to the Russian Federation? Russian forces will not enter this demilitarized zone. But what if they are forces of the independent Luhansk People's Republic? Remember, this is the game Russia already played. This is literally straight out of 2014's stupid agreements, right? And they say, we promise not to change these arrangements by force. Any security guarantees will not apply in the event of a breach of this commitment. Oh, interesting. Well, wait. Not a Ukrainian breach of this commitment, just a breach of the commitment. So if the Russian Federation, as this wording indicates, if the Russian Federation simply seizes part of Kherson, the security guarantee doesn't apply. It doesn't say just for Ukraine. It doesn't say to the aggressor. Huh. Interesting. Clearly, this is a really airtight security guarantee. Russia will not prevent Ukraine from using the Dnieper River for commercial activities, grain transport. And one more, of course, the final point. A humanitarian committee is going to solve all the other issues. All for all prisoners and bodies, no verification required, of course. Civilian detainees and hostages will be returned, including children. No verification plan. Family unification plan will be implemented. You know, they'll just sort out these fundamental issues. Interesting. And Ukraine has to hold elections in 100 days. So again, who decides when elections take place in a foreign nation, in a nation? Is it, do the Canadians decide when U.S. election is? Does China decide when Brazilian elections are? No, actually, I think a sovereign country decides when its own elections are held. Also, in 100 days from when? From the date the treaty goes into force? From the implementation of the agreements? 100 days when? In 100 days from when? The answer is it doesn't matter. It's about Russia demonstrating that it electorally controls Ukraine. And Russia wants an opportunity to influence Ukrainian elections. By the way, what's very important is that the Ukrainian residents of these exchanged territories, right? De facto recognition means that United States will, but de facto means that Ukraine isn't formally recognizing it. So will those citizens be allowed to vote? They're Ukrainian citizens and technically still in contact. Like this is, again, the treaty itself is fundamentally incompatible with itself because you can't have de facto recognition of say, okay, we're going to de facto recognize that Russia's occupying these territories. But that also means that you have to say, oh, de facto, these citizens have changed citizenship, but they haven't. They're still Ukrainian citizens. So how will they vote in an election in just 100 days when there's no condition to explain how they can vote if they are in areas that are occupied? Do you see the problem here? Oh, and by the way, any war criminals get full amnesty, no matter what you did. Oh, and it's legally binding by the Peace Council, headed by President Donald J. Trump. Sanctions will be imposed for violations. What? No, the treaty isn't in force anymore if it's violated. It says up there. Oh, the ceasefire will take effect immediately after both sides retreat to agreed points and begin implementation of the agreement. Well, only Ukraine is expected to retreat. Oh, no, sorry. The Russians are going to give up about 100 square miles in Kharkiv. monitored and guaranteed by the Peace Council. Absolute insanity, guys. I don't know what to tell you. This is maybe one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. And the insane part is that the administration really seriously believes that this is great diplomacy. This is airtight shit. Because look, they're threatening to cut intelligence and weapons to pressure Ukraine into a new peace deal, which, by the way, Congress passed those weapons allocations. Those are from Congress. So the president and White House doesn't have the authority to even make this threat. Okay. To say that these are widely seen as unfavorable, they're widely seen as retarded. I can't even begin to tell you how stupid this is. And here's the thing. It's so stupid that Russia is pretending that this plan doesn't even really exist. Russia's like, well, we haven't seen it. We've never heard of this thing. Which, again, is one of the reasons you don't do these back channels. Because what if Kirill Dmitriev isn't authorized to make a deal at all? Right? What if he got told by Putin, listen, Kirill, just stall for time. Just buy us some time with the Americans. And Kirill goes, don't worry about it, buddy. I got it. I'm going to talk to Steve, and I'm going to lie to him just like I lied about Alaska, and I'm going to get him all worked up and in a tiz, and they'll spin their wheels for a while, and you, Putin, are going to get another couple weeks before American sanctions get implemented. That's why you don't do this. You say, listen, if you're serious about this, then put your name behind it. Come out in public and say, this is our real offer. So the fact they haven't even done this, meanwhile, the U.S., the White House is like, this is for realsies, guys. And the Russians are like, nah, we've never seen such a thing. Now, of course, Zelensky has been told this is the real deal, and he's come out and said that Ukraine is facing one of its most difficult moments because obviously it risks losing a key ally. Meanwhile, Europe is saying all the things that we're saying. This isn't a plan. This is a series of agreements that would have to be reached in order to achieve a plan, plus telling Russia that it gets to take whatever it conquered. This is completely insane. Right? It says, for any peace plan to succeed, it needs to be supported by Ukraine and it has to be supported by Europe. The pressure must be on the aggressor, not the victim. Rewarding aggression will only invite more of it. Bottom line is, peace plan is not doable. It's based on appeasement of the aggressor. This could only bring more war and brutality to Ukraine and all of Europe. I want to bear in mind, guys, that this deal rides on the back of the fact that Ukraine has launched, Russia launched a series of drone strikes into NATO countries, including Poland. Russian intelligence sabotaged Polish infrastructure literally last week, and Russian combat jets have violated NATO country airspace on half a dozen occasions. And in this treaty, Russia gets rewarded for that. It actually shows that doing those things actually has defeated NATO. Right? In this treaty, Russia is telling NATO that it's going to rewrite its charter to protect Russian interests. So, there you go. Anyway, guys, that's all I had on this video. Thanks to our Colonel tier members, Sergei Zinchenko, Thomas Anderson, William Magnuson, Georgiev, L90, and all of our Lieutenant tier members. Thanks so much, as always, and cheers. All right. Wow, guys. I see a lot of you guys yeah, went out there, did some donos. Let me try to say thanks. Let's see if we can find this here. How can I look at it? There you go. Okay. There you go. All right. Questions. A lot of questions. Oh, ban a Russian troll. Okay, well, I'll get on it. Zelensky came out with a speech about the peace plan and the independent YouTube channel. I saw that. We just talked about it. You know, I think the Ukrainians, the question is not, is this plan going to work? Because it doesn't. Russia very clearly plans to continue an invasion because, right, two things. One, why would they need no troops to be part of the on-the-ground security guarantee? Again, think about it like locking your house. If somebody breaks into your house, steals a bunch of your shit, and then you say, no, we're going to reach an agreement that you don't keep stealing my stuff. And the thief goes, yeah. Okay, we'll do this agreement, but you're not allowed to have locks on your doors, and you're definitely not allowed to have a gun. And you go, well, you're going to steal my stuff again. They go, no, it's not like that. It's not like that. I just want to make sure that you don't have any locks on your doors or a gun in your house. You go, well, you're obviously going to break into my house again, dude. That's why you don't want locks. That's the only thing they can do. Just like the Ukrainian armed forces, they don't have the ability to conduct like external operations. They're not going to invade Russian oblasts. They're not going to threaten Russia. They can't do it. Certainly not their ground forces, right? And so why then is it really important that Ukrainian ground forces remain subordinate to Russia? Why is it important that they remain unable to resist if you're never going to invade them again? And why is it important that NATO soldiers never be on the line of contact, that they can get no reinforcement from NATO soldiers? Why is that? Right? It's interesting. Again, it's interesting only if you don't understand how Russia works, right? Andrew says, in other news, MAGA Ministry of Truth states all citizens will be happy and feel prosperous. Any questions should be directed to your local office of truth. Packed for a long stay. Yeah, that's how it feels at this point. Remember, guys, we can't release inflation data, but inflation is great. We can't release economic data, but the economy is roaring, right? Tomas, the whole farce is a disgrace for all of the Western sphere. Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. Honestly, Europe should also feel pretty embarrassed that now that they have to pursue an independent military effort, and not even one that involves actual troops on the ground, the fact that they can't, and that they counted on the U.S. despite years and years and years and years and years, decades of the U.S. promising that they were a partner in European security. Remember, guys, the French, the Germans, the Italians, the British all showed up and fought with us in Afghanistan for 2 decades straight, right? They and troops from all of those countries died. Polish troops died in Afghanistan because the U.S. asked them to help. So that's one of the reasons I get so grossed out by the fact that we really just fucked Europe. And we didn't even have to put our American sons and daughters on the line. We just sent them our old shit. And to take out, by the way, an enemy. Like, Russia is an enemy of the United States. I don't know what else to tell you. E-game. Soviet Union fell apart 34 years ago, but point 2 in the peace agreement specifies borders from 30 years ago. Why do you think that is? Oh, interesting. Yeah, that is fascinating. A restoration of, the previous Soviet Union, or as close as they can get. Less the Baltics. Obviously, I think you pointed out, Lavrov went to Alaska with literally a sweatshirt that said USSR on it. So that should tell you what they're trying to rebuild here. Mr. Badges, swinging the truth stick pretty hard today. Yeah, my patience for these games is like pretty exhausted from the White House. Especially, I mean, you got to think, imagine dealing with all the Epstein shit on top of this, like getting told that it's wrong to hold child traffickers accountable and then have to deal with like this nonsense. Is just, it gets increasingly absurd. Yeah. How much did the U.S. pay countries helping them in Iraq? Well, we paid them in the form of, again, the NATO defensive subsidy. We said, we told, actually, this was crazy. Georgia was one of the countries that assisted the United States, sent a whole combat brigade to Iraq. And it was only when that Georgian combat brigade arrived in Iraq that the Russian armed forces invaded Georgia in 2008. So, again, countries should understand pretty clearly that Russia invades when you invite weakness, right? And that the U.S. is not the reliable partner you think it is. Ukraine was also in Iraq. That's right, Chris Travels. That's right. Okay, I just want to point out, guys, I see we got a lot of new members here, and you probably see that pinned comment there. That pinned comment is actually for a fundraiser that we are doing for Ukrainian Armed Forces. The Combat Vet News crew, us, we're working with a whole bunch of Ukrainian elite units, the 3rd Assault Brigade, 54th, the 7th Liu, and the 73rd Naval Special Operations. All of them, we're buying them the stuff they need to make it through the winter, thermal drones, ground drones, power stations, but also we're helping their R&D laboratories where they build the most advanced combat tech, advanced unmanned ground vehicles that really actively save lives. So if you want to help us out, right, the link is right up there and it's pinned in the top of the chat. Remember, it's a US 501c3, so it's tax deductible. And if you donate, $250, the 54th will hook you up with a patch. 400, you'll get a patch on the 54th and from the 7th. It's also a U.S. registered, an EU registered charity, as well as a U.S. registered charity. So a huge thank you to all you guys that have donated already. I'm going to probably do my donation once the live stream ends here, but I always try to do it public and put a positive message there in the chat. Andrew, the video on illegal orders was very on point. The key pivot to maintaining democracy. If you can't subvert troops, you can't shut people up in the end. ICE isn't working out as an elite force. Yeah, ICE is a lot of things. Believe it or not, guys. People go after ICE. ICE has actually been the more disciplined force here. What you're seeing is actually Border Patrol. Green uniforms, Border Patrol. Or multicam, usually Border Patrol. ICE reportedly has actually infuriated the administration because despite firing everybody who protested and said, we like the rule of law, ICE just doesn't like ICE agents didn't become ICE agents to arrest fucking tortilla sellers. Like they want to go after drug dealers and cartel members and like work with the FBI and DEA to take down the worst of the worst. And reportedly, ICE has actually been doing more of that. Border Patrol, though, Border Patrol fucking loves that shit because they have been sitting on the border doing fuck all. Processing migrants, wishing they could arrest people. And so for them, they're like using force, arresting people. They love that shit. They love the idea that they use a bunch of, and Border Patrol is really paramilitary. Like ICE like arrests people, prosecutes crimes, etc. Border Patrol doesn't. They're actually different. ICE are classified as what are called 1811. They're criminal investigators. Border Patrol agents are 1810s. They're considered federal agents. So the difference sounds performative. It's not. Agents conduct investigations. They gather evidence. They do interviews. They make arrests. They testify in court. They get convictions. Agents, they're like beat cops. They arrest somebody, but then they have to call a detective, an ICE agent, to come in and actually do the prosecuting. So that's why Border Patrol looks really paramilitary. So when you see videos of like paramilitary dudes doing fucking unhinged shit, it's because Border Patrol literally are paramilitary dudes just doing unhinged shit. FYI. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still waiting for the part where yeah, I'm still waiting for the part where if the U.S. Was to go and ban Nazis, poor Stephen Miller would be out of a job. That's the only part that I like the best. I mean, who would Tucker Carlson have on as a guest if he got rid of all the fucking Nazis? Yeah. Do 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 do. I can literally hear the clown music. Yeah, I love all the Russian cope. Sergeant Gunnery, Helldivers 2 with the boys once this is over. Very, very tempting. Weirdly enough, I was thinking about that I would love to like do some gaming streaming. I've actually been playing a lot of Arc Raiders. Would you guys watch if I switched over to doing some Arc Raiders gaming, maybe on the other channel? I might even link it. I wonder if I could do that. Is Sergeant Gunnery like a real... Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about sort of the other side of this. There's another side to the coin, right? And I'd like to discuss that for a sec. So let's talk about it. Okay. Russia claims it's doing everyone a favor by pushing for this absurd peace deal. But when we peel back the curtain, we see that the Russian economy is in rough shape and their government is looking even more desperate to fund their war machine. And the timing is just a little too convenient for this peace deal to be chance. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about this one. Now, you might recall that the President Trump actually signed some sanctions actually targeting Russian oil companies. And these sanctions had some real bite to them, going after international holdings for Lukoil and Rosneft. And the Russian stock market crashed basically on the news. Oil prices plummeted, which is actually great for the administration. But the interesting part is that November 21st is the date that these sanctions actually take effect, which is fascinating because today is also the day where Russia has debuted its big peace plan. And the White House is now saying that Ukraine better sign this or else. Well, wait, why are they forcing Ukraine to sign this deal if these Russian sanctions are just now starting to bite? Was this all just a farce? Well, the answer is it appears to be kind of. You can see that the Russian, you can imagine Russian Forex in a state of chaos. But the important part is that the Russian budget receives its revenues from taxes levied on oil production, not on exports. But a decline in exports, obviously, if you can't export the oil, you're not going to be able to sell it for money. You won't pull it out in the first place. And Reuters calculated that the ruble adjusted price for Russian oil, which is the basis for tax calculations, was 24% lower in November than estimates set in the budget, meaning that Russia just had a 24% hole blown in its budget, and the sanctions aren't even out yet, right? So this stands to be a disaster for Russia, a train wreck. And Russia is desperate. In fact, it's so desperate that it's literally selling its emergency gold bars from its central reserve. Yeah, for real. Russia has the 5th largest reserve of gold in the entire world, despite being definitely not one of the 5th largest economies. And it's physically been selling gold to keep to fund its government effort, right? And it's truly absurd. The finance ministry said it sold 57% or 200 plus tons of gold to cover budget shortfalls. And this, I think, is the thing to remember, is that you say, oh, well, the U.S., we have huge state debt, and Russia barely has any state debt. In fact, here's the forecast for the Russian state budget for 2026, 2027, 2028. As you can see, revenues are going to outstrip expenditures even in Russia's own estimates. But we just talked about the fact that Russian oil revenues are unusually low, 24% lower. So this gap between revenues and expenditures is going to get even larger. And the real problem is that, unlike the United States, right, anyone in the world wants to hold U.S. bonds. They're the most reliable asset in the world. Russian bonds are a different story. They're one of the most sanctioned assets in the world. In fact, if you want to do business with the United States, you can't be a buyer of Russian sovereign debt. Almost no one is a buyer of Russian sovereign debt. So what does that mean? That means that this gap is not going to get smaller. It's going to get larger, and there's nothing to fill it other than Russia literally selling off its shit like gold. But not just gold, other things that are crucial aspects of the Russian government. So you can see that basically this Ukraine peace plan is the thing that is keeping the Russian stock market going. And if Russian investors believe that the sanctions go through, Russia is super fucked, like in really bad shape. I don't know what else to tell you. This is just truly. And by the way, guys, this revenue number reflects a huge increase in the Russian value-added tax. The Russian VAT tax is going to get 10% higher, which is going to push consumer prices in turn even higher, which is insane because the Russian economy is actually in a state of recession. It's failing. And so you can see how this, by the way, this VAT tax is going to be demanded of companies making just as little as $122,000 in revenue, right? Down from 600,000. So the VAT tax is going to be collected not from only large enterprises, but literally from, that's like a Russian repairman, a Russian plumber, a Russian electrician who has his own company is going to be stuck paying the Russian VAT tax. This is totally destructive to a Russian economy that can't sustain it. And these are not decisions that you make when your economy is going great. Okay, if your economy is falling apart and inflation is out of control, and you raise taxes, particularly consumption tax like the VAT tax, it is because either you have no economists with any training, which is not the case of Russia, or you are truly and verily desperate for money, right? So again, we have the difference between the projections of the Kremlin. The Kremlin projects like it is strong and decisive and will fight forever. But the actions of the Russian economy and the Russian government are that of a country who is increasingly robbing Peter to pay Paul, robbing from its people to sustain, to pour more and more coal onto its unsustainably high war effort, even as their own economy begins to collapse. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Thanks to our lieutenant tier members and, of course, our colonel tier members, guys like GMAT Club, Henry Russo, James Porsche, Paul, and Peter Fucci. Thanks again. See you in the next one. Cheers. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. I feel like those are kind of separate videos. Yeah, McBlades, thanks for the good show today. Thanks for going over the proposal. Yeah, I think that was really important to sort of break it down because it's very, like, if you stop and think about it, you realize how absurd it is. Like, it's not even a proposal in a conventional sense. It's something else. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's something else, right? Yeah. So what questions you guys have before I get out of here? So what I'll probably do, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to debate if I want to like do some editing and get lunch. I might do ARC in the afternoon. I might just do that. Right? Take a little break, and then we'll come back and stream ARC in a little bit. Does that sound good? So it'll be over on my other channel, MHGR. If you guys want to subscribe to that, that would be kind of rad. I don't really do that much on it. It's just kind of my channel for like other shit that I want to do. Let me see if I can find it, and I'll link it in here. But you can hit subscribe, and you can, yeah, there you go. So this was my OG YouTube channel. So if you want to hit subscribe there, and that's where I'll be streaming. So yeah, some ARC Raiders. Anyway, guys, thanks so much. And